All right. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Paul Salazar. I'm excited to have you here today because I'm going to be sharing a one-on-one interview with Jessica Furey from Dumb Girl Podcast, discussing some really important topics to me: personal growth, overcoming challenges, and my transformational journey with plant medicine. Not only that, I'm going to be discussing some of my top real estate tactics for buyers and sellers. Whether you're new to real estate or a seasoned veteran, you'll find some great nuggets here in this video. Whether it's personal growth, plant medicine, or real estate, this video has something for everyone. If you enjoy what you see, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button. And if you have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below and I'll make sure to get to it. All right, let's get to it.
Hey guys, it's Jessica Furey, host of Dumb Girl Podcast. Tune in every Monday for new episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Welcome to Dumb Girl Podcast. Today we have Paul Salazar. He is a real estate agent with Hilton and Hyland. He has 17 years of experience. He has closed $650 million in sales, and he has served over 250 clients. He has been featured in Forbes, LA Times, People Magazine, and Dirt Real Estate. Paul, welcome to Dumb Girl Podcast.
That's too much.
Yes, it is.
We have to go back and like make some edits to that. It's so funny because the first time that somebody read that out to me, I got so embarrassed because it just sounds like a lot, you know. And it's like 17 years in the business is a long time. It just feels weird to hear that. But anyway.
Wait, it's the 17. I thought you were going to say it's the 650 million.
No. Just like all the stuff there is like, it's pretty cool, you know? But it just, you know, it's cool. It's a lot of work and it feels good to hear that, but also feels kind of weird to hear that, you know?
Why? What's embarrassing? Is it embarrassing?
It's not embarrassing. I don't know. It just kind of, it makes me feel vulnerable maybe. I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't like to, I'm not like a big boaster kind of guy, but I know it's in real estate, you kind of have to,
yeah,
you know, cause it's like, you have to kind of tell people like what you're all about, but it does feel weird. I like that question.
Do you lead with your confidence or do you lead with your experience?
That's a good question. I think with my confidence. Yeah. I mean, I have the experience to back it up. But I think when I'm talking to people, I just go in there just being myself and just being like a friend and just want to help out like another human being.
Yeah. I mean, I know that about yourself. You're very into your caring about your customers and serving your customers. Yeah. But before I even get into any of that, I have to start with this. Yeah. And we spoke about this because I've done ayahuasca ceremonies.
All right. Already. I love it.
And you've done one ayahuasca ceremony? How many?
I've done 2 ayahuasca ceremonies and 2 yahe ceremonies, which is like a Colombian type of ayahuasca, but it's called yahe. Mm. And I've done other plant stuff like sassafras and canna and peyote. So I've been on the plant medicine run for the last couple of years. Yeah. And
iboga, I think it's called. I don't know what it is. It's like
iboga. I've never heard of that.
Iboga. But what started you to take that journey?
My last relationship. So basically, in my last relationship, we were together for about 5 years, and great. We were in love. Everything's good, and we kept having this one problem that we could not solve, and it was basically our 2 childhood, traumas hitting each other like straight on. And mine is, when somebody comes into their masculine energy, I shell up and I kind of get very timid and I also get numb as well. So, when me and my ex-girlfriend now, when we were going through any kind of argument, even really, really small stuff, I would shell up and I would get numb, and that's not healthy in a relationship. When you want to be present, you want to hear the other person and like listen to them and be vulnerable. And I just couldn't do that because the energy was just too strong of like masculine energy, because it reminded me of my dad growing up. And my dad, when he got mad at me, he would, get the belt out and spank me. So whenever I feel that masculine energy, then like automatically like the trigger response is just like numbness in my body. And I went to several therapists and I learned a lot about this, and I learned where it came from, which is amazing, but I couldn't solve it. Like I still couldn't solve it because it's like when that happened, I had no control over that trigger response. It just happened. It's your nervous system just goes into fight or flight mode. And for me, it was flight, not fight. And for my ex-girlfriend, it was fight. When she got triggered, it was fight. So she would get even more into that kind of masculine energy, and I would get more flight. Like I just want to get out of here.
What was your response to it? If you don't mind me sharing.
I would just numb out. I just would numb out, and I would just sit there and just not feel anything. I mean, obviously I felt a lot in my body, but I wasn't listening to what she was saying. I was not present, and inside my body, I think I was just like buzzing, but it was kind of like numbness in a way.
Did you numb with like coping mechanisms?
I mean, not really. Like I do marijuana, like edibles, and I'll smoke sometimes, but like I don't do it often enough to like do it as like a medicine, or as like a practice.
Yeah, just like a luxury.
Yeah. But during those times, I just wanted to escape, be on my own. Yeah. So the ayahuasca was the first thing I was like, all right, we were together for about almost 4 years at that point, and I was like, and we were about to break up, and I was like, all right, let me just figure something out, because I'm like, we've done multiple therapists. I know where the problem's coming from, but when it's happening, I can't do anything about it, and that's really, really frustrating. So,
what did you go into the medicine with? Usually there's like an intention you bring with the mother. And
Yeah. So my intention was to open up my heart. So instead of, again, being numb, I'm not numb, and I'm present, and I'm vulnerable, and my heart is open, because when you're numb, your heart is closed and you have a big shield over yourself. So then like nobody can like penetrate that wall, so that was my intention.
How has it shown up? Like because now that you've done multiple ayahuasca ceremonies, I've done multiple ayahuasca ceremonies, and my first one, when I was in a relationship with someone for about 3.5 years, and they say that if you want to see like more of yourself, get into a relationship. Like if you want to discover more about yourself, 100%. Get into a relationship. And I'm grateful, but it did bring up a lot for me, and it did really show me that my work of another person is not for me to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like
correct.
It's not my work
to take care of another person.
To take the inventory of another person, but it's I always still want to be there to show up for this person, but it's not my work for them to do.
Correct.
But when I went to the ceremony the first time, it was for just my own insecurities and fears that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time that I did, I wanted more of my relationship to reveal itself, and that was very heavy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like so heavy that I am uncovering through my podcast how to share it with the world, how to share it with others, and really connect them to certain things that come up in relationships that I've never experienced in my whole entire life. And I was not born yesterday, and I've been on this earth for a little bit, and it's just crazy that it just came. I was like, oh my God.
I'm a big fan of the work that medicine does to you. Like all the answers are within us, and it's so hard for us to reach those when we have the ego. And the beautiful thing about ayahuasca is that it literally strips the ego down to nothing, and so now you're able to see things with just your heart, and that is powerful. So it was my second night of the ayahuasca, because the first night, I was nervous going into it, obviously, and like hearing all the stories. And I drove up to San Francisco to do it. And that whole drive, I was like listening to podcasts and like YouTube videos, and it probably freaked me out a little bit because you hear all these stories and vomiting and, all that stuff. So I was a little nervous. So the first night, it was kind of more of just like understanding like what's happening. And then the second night, it was really kind of diving deep, because after the first night, I was a little frustrated. I was like, I came here to do some work, and I haven't done that work yet, So my second night, it was really strong intention. I was like, I need to open up my heart. I need to do that, And after the first cup, it was like an hour later, and after I vomited, that's when that vision came. And I'll tell you the vision because it's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So I was laying there, and I'm in a room with like 20 other people who are, vomiting and crying. It's I mean, how it is. It's like it's an experience, right? Mm-hmm. But the crazy thing is like, like when I say that and like I hear people's reactions, it's probably my same reaction like before I did ayahuasca. Was like, oh, that seems like really uncomfortable space. But when you're in the medicine, like that, all that stuff doesn't really bother you, like even like there's one lady that was like literally yelling, like somebody was dying. Yeah. And you're just kind of, just saying, I hope she's okay, but you're still within yourself, Yeah. But the first thing that came up was, I had a conversation with my heart, and I was just, it was like a movie. I was kind of seeing it all happen and I wasn't really participating in it. So I my subconscious or whatever was like asking my heart, like, hey, why are you in this cave? So like my heart was like in this, like, almost like an eel that's like inside this little hole and all you see is this little head popping out. That was my heart. It was like in this cave and it was like not really like showing itself. And I asked my heart like, hey, why are you in this cave? Like, why aren't you coming out? And the heart said, well, because you never protected me. And I asked the heart, like, what are you talking about? And the heart said, well, growing up, like whenever somebody hurt your, like, your feelings, your heart, your feelings, you never stood up for yourself or the heart. So that's why the heart was just like, all right, over time, the heart was like, all right, I'm not going to show up because you're not showing up for me. Right. So I basically brokered a deal with my heart. And I said, I'm sorry. I don't, I want to make sure that I protect you. And if I'm feeling hurt, I want to make sure that you're heard. So the heart came out of its cave and it came up into like this really cool 3D world and it got like spotlights on it and everything. So it was insane. It was insane. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like it. Then like I kind of wake up and I'm like, wait, this is really happening right now? Like this just happened right now, And then I put my heart on my chest with like a glass case so people can see my heart as I'm like walking around. And like that's the way I want to carry myself. And in that moment, I was trying to figure out what I want my heart to be, like how I like what I wanted to like represent. And I thought about one of my best friend's kids, who is just like, he's like 3 years old and he's just like love, he's just like a pure loving thing. And being with that kid felt so nice because he was just like, he comes up to me, hugs me, he loves me. And I'm like, that's so nice. And I was like, I want to be that, So yeah, that was my first like real experience with ayahuasca was, having my heart come out and showing up.
How did you integrate that? After the medicine, so usually after you do like plant medicine, there's an integration period. So the medicine is still in you for about 48 to 72 hours after you finish ceremony. Yeah. And then there's an integration period. And how did you integrate? And yes, we continue to integrate the things that we received back in medicine, but the integration period, how did you integrate what you received and then into whether your business or maybe this person, are you still in contact with this person or maybe just relationships in general?
Yeah. Great question. And I think that is, I think half the thing is going and doing the plant medicine and having an intention. The other half is integrating it. Right. That's really, really important. I would say that ayahuasca was in me for like 2 months. Yeah. It was like, I was crying a lot. And I don't cry, I cry a lot more now because I've been like kind of really, really working on myself. So I'm a lot more emotional than I used to be.
I wish I didn't cry.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I'm jealous of like people that can cry and just like let it out. Like
I purged tears. The second time I did ayahuasca, I cried all night. All night.
Yeah. And so like right after that happened, I cried for like 2 hours, but it felt so freaking good.
Really? I hate crying.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like women, that's like, but for like guys, like, even growing up, like my dad would, like when he spanked me, he said, stop crying. you know? So it's like, as an adult, it's important to cry, or it's important to release those emotions, however it is. And for most people, it's crying is releasing those emotions. There's other ways too, but I think crying is probably the easiest way. But the integration is really is the most important thing afterwards. It was good to understand where my heart was at and understand why it was not showing up for me in those times. And I would say it since then I've obviously done more plant ceremonies, and it's a work in progress. I've been on this personal growth journey for about 10 years now, since I was like 31 years old. And so this is kind of part of it. And right now, I've been single for about 6-7 months now. So like you said earlier, in which I completely agree, if you really want to know yourself, you have to get in a relationship, So my last relationship, it ended because we still couldn't solve that problem, but it was not just me. Going through the plant ceremony stuff and going through more therapy and more integration, I figured out it was not only me. It was the other side too, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Right. So at some point I just said, you know what, I have to, this is not healthy anymore, and I have to get away from this. And so I'm in a much better place now. And I'm still working on myself for sure. The last time I did plant ceremony was like a few months ago, and I'm doing one in a few weeks as well. And so I'm continuing the journey, and I think it's a lifelong journey, like just to kind of improve myself, and to not let these triggers control me, not let my inner child control me during those times.
But there's something about like doing plant medicine. I was telling, I had somebody on a couple months ago, and he's has like a lot more experience, and his family does it as well. And they were sharing about, and I was telling him that I want to go back into the medicine. And one of the reasons why I want to go back in is because, so I love to like dance and be like free. I like to be free. I don't like to be constricted. And a lot of the things that I've been experiencing lately have been very constrictive, and I'm sort of like trying to find my way out of something and trying to find like a new door. But something about doing medicine, I just love it, because the people that I've sat with, they play music, and then I can like dance, and
That's
I really
so important.
like that.
I agree. The music is great.
Yeah, but it's the medicine that I feel as if kind of like opens that part of me, and people are like, oh, you can always do that in your house. Now, is it something that the medicine brings out in you, or is it something that you just want to continue to do that deep internal work within yourself?
I think it's both. I think, the power of all these different plants, brings out, different things, even like mushrooms and even like marijuana too. But the fact that like the ayahuasca can like really reduce the ego down to nothing, and you can see things in like a different light, like after that whole experience with the heart, the first thing that came up, it wasn't my girlfriend, it was my sister. And me and my sister have always had a really tough relationship. I didn't understand her. And since I didn't have the ego and I just had my heart, I went back in time, and I realized, because we grew up in the same household, and she was completely different than me, but also the same. And I didn't understand her. And I was always very frustrated by my sister. And that, like, going back in time and seeing how she is now and why she's the way she was, and how I was just really judging her the whole time, was really powerful. This is why I was crying for like 2 hours, because I felt really sad. I felt really sad that I hadn't loved my sister without just like, it's like I just always was like judging her, instead of just like loving her. So that was really powerful. And I really, and now my sister and I have a much better relationship. Like that night, like I think it was like an hour after I finished crying, and I was still under the medicine. Like everybody, like I went to my room and I got my phone, and you're not supposed to do this under ayahuasca, but I sent her like on WhatsApp, and I sent her like a long voice note. I said, and I was bawling, and I said, I'm so sorry for not being there for you, for for judging you, for kicking you out of the house, and like I think it was like in college or whatever. And it felt so good to say sorry, and she was so happy to hear that. You know, so it's like that alone was like, wow, like that was so powerful, because I was like, I just like almost like restored like my relationship with my sister. And that's huge, because now I'm not only curing me and my sister, but I'm now curing my dad, who's always felt like me and my sister or like I don't treat her well, you know, and my mom too, like showing her an example of how we can like really fix these things, you know. So it was a really powerful moment, and so that's why I'm a big fan of the plant medicine. And to answer your question, I think you also asked me about the deep work, and yeah, like I still want to continue doing the deep work for sure.
Has it shown up in your business?
For sure, especially in LA. Because LA is pretty cutthroat, right? I mean, we know that, right? Like LA, especially LA real estate, you know, it's so competitive. So trying to be this like very open, vulnerable man, but also being competitive and being confident, is a balance that I'm still trying to figure out, you know? So it's definitely shown up in my work. And maybe, you know, like some clients of mine may not think I have that edge that they think that I would need in order to like sell real estate, you know? I know I do. Like I know that I know enough about selling real estate.
What do you mean that edge?
I don't know. I think maybe I see other agents that maybe have this like, maybe it's like, and this is just again me like judging, like this bravado, this arrogance that I don't have. I'm just kind of like a very simple guy, I think. And when I talk to my clients, you know, I try to be as vulnerable as I can with them and just be as open and honest with them, instead of being, I don't know, maybe I'm not really explaining myself, and sometimes it's really hard for me to like formulate these kind of thoughts, but it definitely shows up in the business, and I'm still trying to figure out how I can attract the clients that I want to attract. That's the most important thing for me, you know? Like I want to attract clients who are more like me, who understand me, and where where they just trust me. I think that's the biggest thing in real estate is gaining that trust.
I mean, you have 17 years of experience.
Yeah, I know, but still,
it's
hard.
But still, like it's almost like the numbers don't lie.
No.
It's like the numbers don't lie.
No.
17 years of experience. If you do the math, 365 times
Yeah.
17, that's how many days days, hours, minutes that you've been doing this profession.
Yeah.
You worked over 200 people. You're closing, over $500 million in sales.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
It's like, and they say that, no two businesses are ever the same. And I come from a fitness background. I've worked with tons of people in entertainment, celebrities, different type of high profile people. But there's a level of vulnerability that they can show to me because I'm working with their bodies and their minds.
Yeah.
And the level of real estate, and I want to hear it from like your perspective, where it's like, they're sort of like, do they share so much? Do they become vulnerable with you? Do they feel a little bit more fearful? Do you see a little bit more resistance, like a little bit more, not aggression, but like this protection aggression? Like 100%. They're protecting their stuff, or they're a little aggressive and they're very sensitive and they're vulnerable. And then you're dealing with somebody's feelings because they're upset about this and that. Like,
that's the hardest part of the business for sure is I don't want to say dealing. I think that's the wrong word. Is just working with other people's personalities, and trying to make them feel comfortable. Because a lot of the clients I work with, and I think it's just kind of in general, it's like they're just anxious. And it's a big, selling a home is a big deal for most people, not everybody, because a lot of people have done it multiple times and they're just chill and you do what you got to do and it's easy, but there's a lot of people that haven't sold their house in like 30 years. So that now they're like, it's not only the transaction of selling the house, but it's like they're selling all the memories that they had in the house. And so like now you're getting all this anxiety from all that. And so now when it comes to price, you know, that they think their house is worth a lot more than it really is. And I think that's the hardest part about our business and is dealing with price. You know, I feel like most sellers think their house is worth more than it is.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now.
Yeah. And there's going to be, you know, if they interview 5 agents, 4 agents will tell them that it's worth, you know, as much as they want to hear it's worth. So I've lost a lot of listings because I've told them the truth. Like, hey, listen, these are the comps is where, you know, this is what it's worth, you know? And so now I'm trying to like figure out like a different way of communicating the price in a way where they understand. But like, listen, a lot of times I'll take a listing that's like 10% over and then I'll have to just reduce the price at some point, you know? And I always tell them, I was like, listen, let's try your price. Let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work after 2 or 3 weeks, let's reduce it.
I've heard that on several occasions.
Yeah. Otherwise you lose the listing.
But can you, because you are saying that you want to attract a particular client, and I believe, and we've even spoke about this in a couple of episodes, like writing down exactly the type of client that you want, or writing down the exact type of partner that you want. And what would be an example of a client that you're like, I did not attract this client, and I want you to be as specific as possible, where it's like, I did not attract this client. I don't want to call it a nightmare, but this is the complications that showed up. This is the work that I had to do, and this is the lesson that came from it. And this is how I need to know how I've gotten stronger in my business.
Okay, so there's a good book called I think it's called The Social Styles Handbook. And it talks about like the different personality types. There's like 4 of them, right? There's like the analytical person, the drivers, like the CEOs, business owners. You have the amiables, and then you have like the influencer type, the people that like that like attention. So I sold this house. It was like 2 years ago. I do a lot of expired and canceled listings and for sale by owner. So I do a lot of cold calling, which generally are overpriced listings, right? Not always, but generally they are. A lot of times it's just the agent on the other side isn't a good agent, and you know, it's poorly marketed or whatever. So this one, it was a CPA and super analytical client, and my coach just had told me, hey, read this book, you know, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together that this guy is super analytical, and he was on the market on and off for 10 years, on and off the market. I get the listing and I'm like, all right, I got this. Like, and I love the challenge of expired and canceled listings, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to sell this thing and it's going to be a great, you know, case study, you know, and I have several of those case studies. But this one in particular is a really good story because it was on the market for about 3 months. We did a really small price reduction. It was in the high 5s. And we get a lowball offer at $5 million. So we're like around $800,000 apart.
What time in the market is it? What year?
This is like 2 years ago.
Okay, so this is when it was hot.
Hot market.
Okay.
But still, this house has been in the market for a long time.
Okay.
So even though it's a hot market, it doesn't mean anything's selling, right?
Okay.
But I'm like, all right, I'm going to get this thing sold. So we're about, I think, a month and a half away from this thing getting canceled, you know? Not canceled, expiring. Like, I gotta sell this, because he's already told me, he's like, Paul, if you can't sell it, we'll just take it off the market. I'm like, I spent so much time and effort and energy in this. Like, I got to get this thing sold. So we get a low ball at $5 million. He doesn't want to respond. And I tell him, I'm like, listen, we got like 2 other really good buyers that I think I can get offers from, but we need to respond to this offer. So I can tell them that we're negotiating an offer. I can, you know, create urgency. And creating urgency is a very important skill that you need when selling real estate, you know, because a lot of buyers, I mean, it depends on the market and the house and all that stuff, right? Sometimes you don't have to create urgency. It's just like you get a ton of offers, right? But for the houses that don't get a lot of offers right away, how do you create that urgency for the buyers that are just like, oh, it's a nice house, I like it, but I'm going to see if there's anything better, right? Unless somebody comes in and swoops in like, oh, there's an offer here, and they're like, all right, well, this now I want it, right? It's always that like weird thing, right? So I get a lowball offer and he doesn't want to respond. And I'm like, just trust me. Like, let's just respond on this because I'm going to use this as collateral to get other offers. Right. So so he says, all right, let's respond. So we respond to the offer. And now I call the other agents. I'm like, hey, I got an offer. I know your buyer's been like, seen it twice or 3 times. Like, do you guys want to make an offer now? Because, your buyer might lose it at this point. So then we get 2 other offers within a week period. So we go from 0 offers to 3 offers after being on the market for like 3 or 4 months. And I was able to get the first buyer, the lowball buyer, to come up almost to asking price. I think we sold it for like 96% of list price. So it came up almost all the way up to our ask price. Plus I got my client 3 months free lease back on a house that will probably lease out for $30,000 a month. But the lesson there, to answer your question, was this book describes how you deal with the different personality types. So when you deal with like an analytical personality, you want to have everything in writing. Because we were doing Zoom calls. He was out of town. We were doing Zoom calls. And on the Zoom calls, I was able to like convince him. And then he would email me later and say, oh no, he would change his mind. And I was just like pulling my hair, like, come on, like we just talked about this and you were on board. And then my coach is like, he's like, why aren't you following the book? And I was like, okay. So I have all these cliff notes on this book and it says, email everything, email all the scenarios, email like all the pros and cons and all the numbers and everything. It was a long email. It took me like an hour and boom, like he signed the contract and we were good to go, And so, I made over $100,000 on that, just by understanding the different personality types. And even though so on this chart of the social styles handbook, it's like a matrix. So like if you're opposite from a certain personality, that means it's harder for you to communicate with that person. So for me, like I was a direct opposite of like an analytical person. So that's why I was clashing with him. Me and his wife were perfect. I would, we had great conversations. It was flowing, but for the husband, and he was the one that was making the decision. It was like, you got to write emails. So, I think, I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know what your question was on that, but
no, you've answered it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I was also the second part of it that I want to hear was, what was the lesson that you learned from it and that you were able to apply it into one, you're talking about so much of the relationships, the relationship factor within this person. It was almost like you were listening to the person and you were reciprocating what they wanted and having their needs met.
100%. So the lesson there is that everybody has a different personality type, and it's up to us being in sales is like, how do you move this person from here to here? How do you communicate with them in a way that they're going to understand? And I thought that just like talking to him was the way to go, but it's not. For him, it was an email. So, and for like a driver personality, it's like they don't want to hear all the fucking details. They just want to get the yes. Like they're much easier. And the amiable person is they need somebody else to help them with the decision. So you may ask them for like, hey, who do I need to talk to that will help you with the decision? And an influencer type is like, just make them feel good. That's it.
Well, I think that's cool just because it's more of like, you ever hear those things where it's like you have to reciprocate, you have to mirror the person that you're having a conversation with. Like you have NLP. To almost like not become an actor and you have to change how you're communicating to be communicate with the other person. And it brought up something for me that you and I were talking about the other day. You work with Tom Furey as a coach. Yeah. And I don't know what it was that you said specifically to me about, oh, he's totally a relationships person. He's totally a wellness person. Yeah. He's all about that stuff. Yeah. I'm like, that's the name of the game when it comes to like your business. You're getting your mind right. Yeah. What are some of those tools that Tom has brought for you? Because you're talking about your coach right now. Yeah. What are some of those specific tools that he has helped you with, or some of those things that you've applied in your own business that's helped you create this success?
I think is the morning routine, for sure.
I'm obsessed with my morning routine.
Yeah. Morning routine is super important. And I be honest, like it's important, but also I gotta be honest, like I haven't been consistent with it, but when I am, like when I don't work out in the mornings, like my day is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
When I don't need a hard workout. Like I just need like a half an hour workout, 20 to 30 minutes of like a good, heart rate, strength a little bit, some like stretching. But the workout in the morning is like the most important thing. And sleep, getting good sleep, just getting rest, right? And also having like a time to yourself, eating healthy, right? Having your body feel good.
Is that the things that Tom Ferry has brought to you?
Oh yeah, for
had?
sure.
Like, is that the values that he was like, oh, do this or do that?
And it's not only him. It's the people that like he's coached or like his organization is coached. Like, so when he has like his big events, he has like these little breakout sessions where he's had like successful people, talk to a group of agents. And then, so they'll talk about what their routines are. So for me, it's about, all right, what are the people that are successful doing? And if they're doing it, why am I not doing it? Or, why shouldn't I do it? So that's what I've been kind of incorporating, is like seeing what other people that are successful are doing and people that I admire, and just just doing the same thing. Yeah. Because if they're doing it and they're successful, then, I just want to mirror that. Yeah.
It's like you're almost, I get a sense that you're very flexible, and you can be flexible in multiple situations. Yeah. And because we're both in the same business and we're moving into a buyer's market, and I want you to explain it to the audience, because a lot of people, they're so used to just turning on the phone or the television, listening to like 10 or 15 minutes, if that, getting that information and it being factual. It's the end all be all. And
that's frustrating.
I want you to speak on two things: the current market, being in a buyer's market, and the shift that you've experienced, because the seller's market was insane. It was basically like houses just flying off the market. Yeah. What was the shift that you experienced, and what is it currently showing up in your business? And
the shift has been, like overall the sales have, like sales volume has gone down like 30 or 40% in LA. That's a lot. 30 or 40% less sales volume. That means 30 or 40% less commissions, right? For the agents. But that also means that there's agents that are not committed to the business, that are leaving the business, which is good. So there's less competition. But it's a strange market, because I wouldn't call it a buyer's market in all the areas. So I think it's important that the consumer understand that, because the consumer reads either national news or they'll look at local news, right? The national news is not local. So reading that, it gives you an idea of what's happening kind of overall, but it's not an indication of what's happening in your neighborhood, in your block, your street. And that's what I love about LA real estate, is that every area is completely different. So like, for instance, I had a house in the market. It was the old Billie Holiday house off Benedict Canyon. Beautiful 1926 Spanish, expired listing. And I took over last year, had it in the market for 2 months at 3.5, didn't get it. I got a low ball offer at 2.5 and $1 million less. And the buyer's like, oh, the market is crashing. Anyway, we didn't even respond to that because it was just such a low ball offer. Then we take it off the market during the holidays. It rains in the winter, so it's like, had some water issues. We put it back on the market a month ago at a reduced price at 3.1, from 3.5 to 3.1. We got multiple offers in 24 hours and sold it for 3.4. It's just a weird market. It's just like, so then like for like a buyer out there looking, and they're like, yeah, this house has, been reduced. Okay, I'll put an offer. And now it sells for $300,000 over asking price. It's like, it's so hard to understand what's going on. That's why it's really important to talk to a professional who's in the business 24/7 to really understand, and not only in the business, but understands that property. Because when we talk about buyer's market and seller's market, I think it's property specific. If it's priced right, if it's turnkey, if it's in the right street, it has the right view, the flat pad is big enough. So for a buyer that may think, oh, it's a buyer's market, I'm gonna lowball or I'm gonna get a deal on this house, and this house sells in multiple offers, they're just like, what's going on? They're really confused. But that's what's happening right now because there's very little supply. Like I just put a house on the market in Beverly Hills, south of Wilshire for 4.4. There's 4 houses on the market south of Wilshire right now, where there should be 20 or 30 houses. There's 4 houses. So that's the issue that we're dealing with right now. It's a very low inventory market. And normally when rates go up, especially when they go up from 3 to 7%, prices should go down. But that's not the case right now. The prices have gone down in general in LA about 10%, but that's kind of across the board. But it's a per property specific kind of thing. And it's important to know that.
Yeah. And how do you stay on top of that? Like, what are some of the specific things that you do by being you just said it right now.
Yeah.
You have to be 24 hours in the business.
Yeah.
What are some of those things specifically, whether it's an agent that is listening or somebody just like, what's interesting about what I notice in real estate in Los Angeles is that sellers know some stuff. Yeah. Like they do their homework.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Most of the sellers
They're
that
savvy.
I've come across, or even buyers that I'm working with, they know a little bit that's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you need to give them a little bit extra. Like they already know certain things. They know the area.
Yeah.
Sometimes they even know what the house across the street sold for and what the other agent is selling up the block for. Like they know some of that information. And what are those things that either you continue to do, they're just like routine, or things that you just on a day-to-day, like, okay, I do a little bit more of this, or I do a little bit more of this.
And that's a great point because, and this happens all the time too, even for me. It's like, I'll talk to a seller and they'll know more than me on a listing appointment. That's like really frustrating, We've sold all of our information to the public. Right? Like all the information that we've worked hard to get, and we've worked hard to put on the MLS and the photos. Now it's being sold to Zillow, and then they resell it to us, right? So I got my own views on that, but everybody knows everything now. It's like almost everything's like
what
public.
What it's sold for before, how long it's been on the market.
Everything. It's like everything's public information now. So where is our value as a real estate agent? Now we have to reinvent ourselves. In the last 10 years, we've had to reinvent ourselves in the industry because what we used to have in our back pocket, now it's not. It's just it's out on the table and everybody sees it, And I think that's why commercial real estate, they keep it tight over there, They don't want to, give everything away, But for residential, it's like everything's out in the public. So for me, it's now going beyond that. People may not understand, they'll look at the Zestimate and they'll be, all right, my house is worth this much, or they'll have a range, or the house next door is worth this much. So now my house is worth kind of the same. It's understanding how to really analyze a property and what it's worth. And that is a skill that you need to get as a real estate agent. And it just takes time. And for me, it takes a lot of time. So whenever I go to a listing appointment, I like to prep a lot for it. And so I have like a template that I use, and it has all these questions that I ask myself. And I go on Google Earth and I look at the property, and I'll turn my iPad around. So I'm looking at the topography. And that's the beauty of LA real estate. We have hills, we have flat, we have views, we have no views, we have no flat pad, we have a big flat pad. So understanding how to value a property is really, really, really important, that I don't think a lot of agents know how to do. Because all these estimates and all that stuff it works in other areas where there's tract homes, but in LA it's not a reliable source to know the value of your house. So that's an important part. And then the other part is if you're working with a buyer, right, it's inspecting the house. I don't think a lot of buyers agents do a good job helping their buyers inspect the house in a way where they're going to know what they're buying. And it happens all the time. Like right now, actually right after this, I'm going to go to a listing appointment. And this guy bought the house directly from the developer, and the developer enclosed a big part of the yard that is part of state property. So the lot is like now twice as big, but it's not even their lot, and they thought it was their lot. And if they had a buyer's agent, like a good buyer's agent that, you know, knew like, all right, well, let's look at the parcel map, and that why is this part of your yard? You know, let's get a survey. Let's look into that. And I think buyers and sellers are always looking for a deal. They always want to save money, but they're not really saving money. It's better to hire a pro that knows, that has the experience, and that can like find things out for you, where you are saving money in the future, right? Instead of saving money right now and maybe going direct and getting a better deal, just pay an agent that is like good. And now you're not going to have to deal with these headaches. And it doesn't always happen, but it happens more often than not.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, like just listening to you, I'm like, wow, you're such a, I think maybe you already know this, is that yes, you have like a skill set, but I think that there's a level of confidence that yes, does come with experience, but something that maybe you can share with others. It's like, how do you take the information that you're sharing with me right now and make it relatable to somebody who's listening to it, that either is somebody who's going to purchase a house, sell a house, or the person that you're about to go into an appointment to make them better understand what's going on? Because a lot of people, they just want to know what's going on. That it's like, it's almost what you're talking about, like the ego thing at the beginning, where it's like, we just all want to be a part of something. We want to be like in something. And a lot of people who even have their homes for 30 years, they're not doing anything. They want to be a part of something. Like they want to be they want to be involved.
Sorry, what was your question there?
What is it like? You're talking. You have a level of skill set.
How do you make it
that's
relatable?
Confident, like
How do you make
where
it?
It's like, how do you even like I don't necessarily like the fake it till you make it, because it's sort of like you have to, but you don't. But you're like, what? Just show up confidently. But what are those things that you have?
Well, I think in order to communicate it in a way where I think is telling a story. And Gary Gold, he used to be at my office at Hilton Hyland. He's a very good storyteller, and I think it's really important to tell a story, right? So going into a listing appointment or just having like stories ready to go, so that when you hear this objection, then you're like, all right, well, let me tell you a story, you know, and then they're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So it's just honestly, like sales is all about conversations. It's all about your skill of having a conversation and being able to tell a story, being able to handle objections. And I'm a big Phil Jones fan. Have you heard of Phil Jones? So he's like a sales coach, and he's all about asking questions. The person that asks the most questions is the one in control of the conversation, right? And it's not about getting to the yes, it's about smashing the no. You know, it's just like, get rid of that no. How do we get rid of that no? Just ask the right questions and then let them uncover it. It's like a good therapist, right? A good therapist is not going to tell you what to do or tell you how to do it. They're going to just ask you questions, keep asking you questions, and then you dig deep, and then you're like, oh, wow. And then it just comes out, you know? So I think that's the power, and that's the skill set that I'm still trying to get better at, is asking the right questions at the right time, in the right tone, right? It's a skill, right? Because like the better you get at asking good, powerful questions, the better your life is going to be in every aspect. In every aspect.
I think it's asking questions and giving room for the person to respond. Because if you're asking, let's say 10 questions, and you're just like, but I'm on question 3. Okay. And a lot of people do this. Like they're hearing someone talk, and they're waiting in their head when they can respond. They're like, but I want to respond with this. And so they respond to the person, but it may not be exactly connected to what they said before, because they just want to respond. So I think that it's like asking the right questions and waiting. And sometimes you got to do that hard pause to get an answer, to be more connected to the question. And now this is also tying in like with relationships in general, to listen, to give a response that also is connecting to the person that you're having a conversation with.
Yeah. And that's what I have trouble with. And it's a skill too, just to shut up and just listen. You know, it's like, you don't have to say anything, Paul. Just listen. Because like there is like this weird feeling inside where it's like you just want to like correct them. And it's the same with relationships. Like, you know, like that's the problem I had too, is like when we had like an argument, it's like always like interrupting, or no, it's wrong, or that's not true. Or it's like, just like let them, like and you're right, because like I'm reading this book right now. It's like To Be a Man. It's a great book. And it talks about it. I was reading a chapter this morning, actually, or it was like last night. And it said, it's like, all right, what are some things you can do to be in a better relationship, you know, with your significant other? And it was just like listening with intent, with curiosity, with vulnerability, and not with the intent of responding, you know? And I just have that natural like response in me to just like respond. And it is a practice for sure. It's a practice. It's a practice.
You know, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and I'm very nerdy when it comes to YouTube. I almost feel like a 16-year-old kid again. I watch YouTube all day.
Yeah.
I just love it. And Jeff Hyland had
amazing.
very prestige way of communicating and working with people. It was, I think somebody said before, it was almost a craft. It was like an art that it was like, yes, he was very like, no, do it this way. No, do it this way. But the way that he would communicate, people would almost be like, yes, whatever you say. Like,
he's listen, rest in peace. He's one of the best ever. So it's like, you know, like ask Zach about some stories, because Zach has a lot of stories with Jeff, because Zach was really close to Jeff.
Zach's going to come on the pod.
Is he? Oh, nice. Is he coming?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
When they finish shooting.
Okay, cool.
The show.
But he's got he got great stories about Jeff. But yeah, Jeff had a very, he always speaks low, you know, slow and low. So people lean in, and he pauses when he talks, you know, and he says the right thing at the right time. And people just respect that, because he has all the knowledge too. And I think that's another thing, is like you talk about Drew Fenton, like you never see Drew, but he's always doing these massive deals. And same with Kurt Rappaport, but they know everything, you know, they're just so knowledgeable about things, you know. So people also want to work with people that are very knowledgeable. Like you can ask Jeff about any house in Beverly Hills, and he'll tell you who's owned it, what they've done to the house, what it's sold for. And it's like, he's just like if I can download his brain into my brain, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. But his level of sophistication
is unmatched. Yeah.
It was the reason why he drove those beautiful Rolls Royces is because he saw it as a level of sophistication and luxury, and he believed that to sell luxury real estate, you need to become luxury. And he was like a fine art, and just like watching it. And even just to work with him is probably just so amazing.
I know.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to just circle back is you have a way of communicating with your customers, and you're committed. You have like a commitment to meet their needs. It's like you have their best interest at heart. And maybe you don't give yourself enough credit because you're talking about the relationship stuff. How do you stay on top of the current buyers that you're working with?
Yeah, that's the hard part. I don't work with a ton of buyers. I tend to lean more into listings. And so if I'm working with a buyer, they need to be looking now, and they need to be very motivated to be working, like to be looking for a house, you know. So a lot of the buyer, again, this is where our value as a real estate agent has gone down from here to almost nothing, you know. I think this thing just went out of battery. So what's our I lost my train of thought. What's our value when it comes to buyers is like, I tell my buyers, it's like, listen, my value is not to come here and start emailing you listings on the MLS, because you already know about those houses probably before I do. You get like a notification on Zillow probably before I get an email from the MLS. So I always tell my buyers, and again, I don't work with a lot of buyers. So I only have maybe like 2 or 3 buyers at any given time that I'm working with. Again, I try to focus on my listings. But if I'm working with buyers, I tell them like where my value is as a buyer's agent is when you like a house, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you that house. So I'm going to be calling that agent. I'm going to be asking the agent where we have to be at. What are the terms that are going to satisfy the seller? And if it's going to go into multiple offers, I'm going to be calling the agent every single day. I'm going to get this closed, because I list more properties, right? Than I'm on more of the seller side than the buyer side. So I see how other buyers agents work. And I would say about 80% of the buyers agents that I get offers from, they don't do a good job. The offer is there's so many mistakes on the offer, which I hate. Like a contract that's poorly written. Even when a contract is so easy to fill out nowadays, it's easy, you know? So but not only that, but they just don't represent their buyer in the right way. Their buyer's getting emotionally invested in this house. They're already, in their head thinking about, raising their family here, having parties here, hanging out in the pool. They're getting all this emotion invested into this house. And then their agent isn't doing them justice, isn't working hard enough when they're submitting their offer in order to get that offer accepted. And I think that's where the value as a buyer's agent comes, at least from me, is when I submit an offer, it's always clean. I always have proof of funds. I submit it on a high note, which is like a website. So you get, like, the agent gets a link. It's really professional. I call the agent. I'm very nice to them. I want them to like me. I want them to want to work with me, right? I think all those things are undervalued. I don't think buyers understand how much value that is, because again, our value isn't sending them, properties on the MLS anymore, because they get that already on Zillow. Finding them off-market properties, yeah, I think there's a little bit of value in that as well. But I think the biggest value is getting the house for them when they want to get it, right? And also having the buyer listen to you too, because a lot of times the buyers want to lowball or may not want to come up in price. And then the other thing is the inspection process, and making sure that the house is that they know the house that they're buying, so that in 2 years from now, or whatever, 5 or 10 years from now, when they want to sell, there's not huge foundation problems or huge plumbing problems that they never knew because their agent didn't help them with the right inspections. So, yeah.
I think that is important. It's almost like doing your due diligence before you even get there,
Yeah.
to avoid them asking questions like, oh, did you do this and do that? And this sort of goes back to Jeff. I just started YouTubing all these different type of OGs, just because as a newer agent in the business, I'm one of those people that I'm just like I'll find out all the information the way buyers do or sellers in the area do, because I want to know every single thing. And it's more than just what's the interest rate today? How's the market? It's no, I want to know why people want to live on this street and they don't want to live on that street. Why is north of Sunset more profitable to buy as opposed to north of Wilshire? People want to be north of Sunset. The trees are beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more suburban, quiet vibe. And I just love that, just be able to create that atmosphere, and that atmosphere that you create with your clients. But I ask all my guests these questions before they leave me. And you tapped on this before. What is a non-negotiable in your morning routine that sets you up for the day?
The workout.
Your workout.
Yeah, for sure. Yesterday, I was telling my team I was in a grumpy mood, and I didn't work out because I had a horrible sleep, and I just woke up late, and the whole day is just not feeling 100%. That and a cold shower.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Can you leave the listeners with one suggestion or piece of advice they can apply to their daily routine, their business, and or relationship?
I think it's one. I have like a million. But if it's one, for me, I was in the business for 13 years. Nobody knew me. And I finally came out of my shell. And I finally said, you know what? Like, I can do this. You know, I always had like a limiting belief that I could not make it on my own. And it's all about mindset. It's like literally, I know that's so cliche, but the mindset is so important. And what is that? Like, how do you get your mindset right? It's reading good books, being inspired by people, hanging around the right people, listening to good podcasts, having a good morning routine, being healthy, working out. I mean, there's so many things that create a good mindset. It's not just one thing. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna have a good mindset, be happy, smile, and you're good. No. It's a lot of work. Like, this up here is so powerful. This machine up here is so powerful. And not only that, it's like your subconscious too, like, you know, everything, right? But it's a practice, and there's so many things. Eating healthy, you know, having alone time, going on vacation, exploring, adventure, nature. So all those things at least help me be in a good mindset, so I can hit every day and be energized, because it's all about energy. If you have low energy, like I had yesterday because I had bad sleep and I didn't work out, then I'm not going to be in the best mood. I'm not going to act in the same way. So whenever I have good energy, I'm pumped. I'm going to, you know, now that energy is now exuding onto others, and people are going to be, you know, even happier around me. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. What are 3 qualities peers of yours would say about you?
I like to have fun. I'm driven. And qualities. This just came up. Being Colombian, you know, like loving my heritage and my you know, where my family's from, you know, is really important to me. So I don't know why that just came up. That's not really a quality, but I love being Colombian and like just embodying what it is to be Colombian, which is like happy and fun and like dancing and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I would say that the way that you talk is so calming and confident. I'm like, oh my God, like, do you talk like this to everyone? It's like so nice.
Like, you mean like really fast?
No, the way that you're talking right now, I think it's just really nice.
I think when you said Jeff Hyland, I think my voice dropped. I was like, all right, I gotta be. Oh, he's here. Oh yeah, Jeff. And you know what? His wife, I see his wife all the time.
Aww.
And it just shows you that he loved Hilton Hyland so much, and it exuded onto his wife. That his wife, who has no, like, Lori, you know, like I would see her in the office every once in a while, like when Jeff was alive, and now she's running the business, which is so cool. I love that.
That's really cool.
Like, now he is in her, you know.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. I can hear more stories.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
Where can people find you? Plug yourself.
I think the easiest thing is at Paul Salazar Group across everything, Instagram and YouTube, and you know, you can just go on Google and Google my name, and you can call me directly if you're an agent, and if you have any questions. And I love to mentor people. I love to give advice. So a lot of people ask me for advice, and I say, give me a call on a Saturday, you know, and then I'll probably answer, and I'll, you know, give them like 10 minutes of my time to answer any questions.
Yeah, that's really cool. Guys, Paul has like these little clips on his Instagram, like these Instagram reels, and they're so good. Like, I'll listen to them and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. It's like less than 30 seconds of like little bits of information, and I really like them. I'm definitely into them. You guys can follow me at Jessica J. Fury, at Jessica Fury Real Estate, and follow the podcast. We're on YouTube at Dumb Girl Podcasts. Thank you so much.
At Dumb Girl Podcast. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed that one-on-one conversation with Jessica as much as I did. I really enjoyed, going deeper into my personal growth with plant medicine, overcoming challenges, and giving you guys some of my tips for working with sellers and buyers. If you like more videos like this, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the like button, and leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll see you next week. See you later.